Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the Tuesday, January 12th, 2016 Committee of the Whole to order. It's approximately 6:07 p.m. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Burgess?
Here.
Councilman Ross?
Here.
Councilman Maldonado?
Here.
Councilman Shelley?
Here.
Councilman Williams? Vice Mayor Faircloth?
Here.
Mayor Porter?
Here. Any additions, deletions, deferrals? None? Tab 1 is the approval of the Committee of the Whole minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Tab 2, reconsideration of the ATS contract. Miss Madigan?
Mayor and Council, by a majority vote at the December 15th meeting, voted to reconsider the November 18th motion authorizing the city manager.
This item is in front of you as if it had never been on the agenda. So it's been back before you. But the reconsideration was voted on at the last meeting, and that's why it's back on the agenda. So it's just here as a regular item.
I know the last meeting, the applicant, I think the final meeting, the applicant wasn't in the room.
The motion didn't pass because it was a tie, but then the reconsideration is voted to reconsider. So this is just the motion back again.
Okay.
Yeah, just to be very clear, because it's easy for this to be confusing. You should look at this as if it's never been on the agenda. So it's a brand new item. That's where it sits in front of you.
Okay, tab 2, any questions from council on tab 2, which is the reconsideration of the ATS contract?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes. Thank you so much, Mayor, and to my esteemed colleagues. It was my desire to put this back on the agenda so that I may do some more due diligence in the work. And I know it's a big contentious issue as relates to the fees and those kind of things. But I think if we're going to negotiate the contract, I think all aspects need to be looked at as it relates to safety. And what I had the ability to do was to really just look at it from a safety standpoint and to also look at some of the work in which the applicant for this renewal of a contract has done and to get some statistics on how much lives have been saved because of this. And I don't know if you all have the presentation, but if I can just quickly just go through some of the things as it relates to the violations that have decreased in Homestead. So there's 60% reduction in the total issue citation by month from 1,091 in September 2009, the first month of the operation, to 440 in this last year, November 2015. So even the citations have gone down. It's lowered the rate of repeat driver behavior, which is a positive change in the driver's behavior in Homestead. I'm just talking about Homestead. And 90% of the ticket receipts did not get a second. Those who got tickets the first time usually did not get a ticket the second time because, of course, they were been served notice of those particular locations. And according to some of the information that I have researched, the aspect of saving lives in Florida, and according to the Florida Officer of Program Policy, the fatality crashes at red light safety cameras intersections on the state roads have reduced by 49%, resulting in almost 18 lives saved on that particular highway. And it goes on and on. And I think that when we really look at the positioning of the cameras and the decreases in crashes and running red lights, the statistics are there that it has come way down to the point that people are really conscientious of their driving habits and not trying to run, trying to beat the light. So I think going forward, I'm in favor of continuing the contract with the augmentation that I read, which are going to be lowering the fees so that it doesn't cost us anymore, which saves us as a city, but also heightens the safety of those of our residents and visitors that come from far and near. So with that, Mayor, I really move the item.
Moved by Mr. Williams. Is there a second?
I'll second the item.
Second by Mr. Maldonado. Mr. Burgess?
I see Officer Sermon here, who has probably done a lot of research for the city. I don't know if he's prepared to answer questions or give any statements here tonight, and if he is, I was just wondering if he could come up and give his expert opinion, and as somebody that deals with these things on a everyday basis, and what his take is on how they help the city or hinder, either way.
Just play it. Mayor, council, staff, thanks for the opportunity. Basically, I'm here to answer any questions. I've been running the program in an enforcement status since its inception in 2009. The program began in May of 2009 with warnings. We had a warning phase to August of 2009 where we began violations. We have 4 cameras covering 3 intersections. I've put together a small video of some of the accidents and things that we've used the video for different investigations that's up on the monitors now. But basically, there's a misconception as to what constitutes a violation, the officer review process itself. So I'm here to answer any questions about that if you have any. And the thing is here is I supervise the traffic unit. The traffic unit itself controls and reviews every one of these events. Since its inception, there have been over 239,000 events captured by these 4 cameras. But out of those events, only 49,000 violations have been issued. This is not an automated system. This is not a computer in a room that's just going to issue our citizens tickets. We as officers and it's what I instruct my officers to do, is to look at these violations, the still video, all the evidence captured, the motion video, and the determination is made if my officers were there at that moment in time during that violation, would they have pulled that person over and issued them a citation? If they would have done that, they are to accept these violations. If they would not have done that, then it's a rejection. And there's certain things, especially on right turns, whether it's careful, prudent, whether there's pedestrians in the crosswalk, speed, how fast they were traveling. Now, one of the things we also did was, we have a set of business rules with the company, ATS. And we don't want to see any violations unless the trigger of 15 miles per hour prior to the stop bar when the light is red. So I've had questions throughout the years, well, I got caught in the middle of the intersection when the light turned red. Am I going to get a citation? No. Well, that's not what the system's for. The system is there to catch people running the red light. And you can't run the red light in Florida unless the light is red and you're on the other side of the stop bar. So these are the things that my officers will check for. So it's not like we're just going to sit there and click yes, yes, yes. We're going to look at the video, look at the still pictures, make sure all the evidence is there, make sure the light is actually red. We reject a majority of them. You'll see we reject 80% of what we see. So only those that break the law and run the red light get the violation.
Anything else, Mr. Burgess?
No, not at this time.
Vice Mayor?
Yes. Do we have representatives from ATS here?
Yes.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. Orlando Torres, American Traffic Solutions, 16395 Mariposa Circle, North Fort Lauderdale, Florida, 33331.
Thank you, Orlando. The last time this item was before us, it failed. And as a result of that, we were not going to move forward because clearly there are members on the dais that don't feel comfortable or not convinced that this is beneficial for our city. We heard from staff. I would like to hear from you as far as why this is mission critical for us to renew this contract in the city of Homestead.
Okay, thank you. And I certainly want to defer data from the police department, crashes and such, directly to the police department. But really, this is a program that the council at the time and some of the members that were there at the time wanted to change behavior. You wanted to change and affect driver behavior to hopefully change the most serious and most dangerous types of accidents. Those are the T-bone accidents at intersections. In 2010, the Mark I Dahl Act was enacted, and the idea behind that was to, again, affect behavior and reduce those accidents. Homestead's a great example of a program that certainly has done that. As Lieutenant Sermon mentioned, you've got over 60% less violations today than when the program started. That's certainly a significant example of change of behavior. The other thing that's a good example of change of behavior is the fact that less than 10% of those that get a violation in Homestead repeat. And the most common thing you hear is, you got me once, didn't like it, but the people changed the way that they drive. And that's really a successful program. Additionally, what you have here in Homestead is you've got a program that's funded by people that break the red light camera laws, funded by violators, and the program has successfully been able to cover all the operational costs from the inception of the program to date, and therefore the program pays for itself. One of the other things that happens with the violator-funded fees and fines that come to the city, the Miami Project to Cure Paralysis, which is a program that gets funds from red light camera runners, has received over $8.4 million since inception to help them with a big part of those very serious accident intersections, which is paralysis. Local trauma centers across the state have received almost $27 million in that same period of time. Jackson Memorial averages about $830,000 a year from red light camera runners from the county. So those are different things that the program has done, not only locally in Homestead specifically, but certainly around the county and around the state. Another thing that you see that's a benefit beyond just the red light cameras for the police department, it almost becomes a force multiplier. It gives them an additional set of eyes out on the road 24/7 so they can have officers that deployed to do other different things. They still get the complaints about the red light cameras, but now those cameras are helping them do that job, and they're using technology to really help them be efficient and provide that coverage 24/7. But even further than that, the City of Homestead has pulled video from those cameras 54 or 58 times in this period to do crime investigations, accident investigations, and in some cases to help residents that have to defend themselves with the insurance companies, that they can show an actual video of whether it was their fault or was not their fault. And the red light cameras for the actual violator provides an additional step. It's got almost instant replay, if you want to use that analogy with sports, where you can actually see whether or not I really ran that red light. The great news is your department does a great job of always erring on the side of the motorist. And when it's that close, I can tell you from going to court with them and being at the local hearings, they err on the side of the motorist if it's too close to call. And the lieutenant mentioned, quite frankly, what they do is they train their officers to do whatever they would do out in the street. So I would say that it's been a very successful program here in South Florida, between you and Florida City, Cutler Bay. It's been a great success in changing the way people drive. I would encourage you to continue the program. We look forward for the continued partnership. You were one of our original partners in Florida, and we want to try to make that work to move forward. I can respect all the opinions, and I welcome some questions, and I'll do my best to answer. And I understand it's a very emotional topic, but at the end of the day, all of us, even those that drive through your cities, want to feel more comfortable that some of these red light runners are going to be held accountable and change the behavior. You've done that with 60% violations. You're changing behavior in Homestead and in the area. Thank you.
Just to follow up, Clearly, the red light camera program has its advantages in that it helps to generate revenue and it assists with accidents and preventing accidents, but it also has its disadvantages in some cases where it's a nuisance, and I know that in firsthand experience, $300 later. But my question is, do you provide quarterly or annual reports to the city, or does the police department pull those reports? Because for me personally, and I'm just going to be frank with you, I think I've heard from you more in the past 2 weeks than I have in the past 4 years. So I would feel comfortable moving forward with this if reports are provided to continue to substantiate the need for the red light cameras in the community. Do you provide those reports?
Yes, we do, and it's a great question. And the great news is that that information is not only provided, but it is looked at by your police department. It's something that's available in the ATS system, and the information that Lieutenant Sermon provided tonight is information that comes out of those reports. It can be pulled out annually, quarterly, depending on how you want to look at the data. We also, part of the service we provide is we have an analysis team that will look at the data, help you analyze the data, where the trends going, where by site. So that information is available. It's a matter of how you want to use it, and certainly we can work further with the police department to find out a better way to analyze the data and provide it to you. But the good news is the reports are there. That's where the data that the lieutenant brought up came from those same reports.
I would like the reports to be provided.
Sure.
I know they're available, but I would like for them to be provided on a quarterly basis.
I don't think that's an issue at all.
So if you can work with Lieutenant Sermon and the police department to provide those reports to council so that we can have communication and contact with you outside of every 3 years now when it comes to renewing the contract.
And again, the idea behind this is it's really the way it was explained. You all made a great commitment to the community to try to change the behavior. It is your program. Our part of it is to support, make sure that the technology works the way it's supposed to, and to your point, make sure there's information to support it and to communicate. So we can certainly help, and we will work with the city to provide the best format that you can use, and it's very simple and very clear. So the good news is it exists.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Maldonado.
Thank you, Mayor. I've supported this program since I've got on this board, and I know that, again, as it's been spoken, that it's been a nuisance to some, but I think like we say, I've only received one ticket myself, and that's because I failed to obey the law. I think that we need to be responsible in what we're supposed to be doing when we're behind that wheel. I shared a story up here with my colleagues in the past, and where I, made a serious effort to come and stop in every single white line before I move forward, because I need to consider everyone else. Plus, we know as elected officials, what the city goes through when we get in an accident. Can you imagine? As a business owner and as a family member, I wouldn't want to subject myself, my business, or my family, or anyone else's family to what happens when we're not responsible with our vehicles. And so, unfortunately, this technology is helping us to do this, because we just can't follow the rules. Stop at the white line. I almost ran over a mother and a child in a stroller one day, just for the fact that I was already training myself to come to a complete stop at every stop sign, and I happened to do it that day late, but I did it. And again, there was a truck it was right here on 312th Street. There was a large truck right to the left of me. I could not see the child nor the mother as she was walking by, and I just happened to catch her at the last moment, but thankfully I stopped because I was training myself to make sure I didn't hurt anyone's life. And so this camera enforces that. At least I took responsibility, but not everyone does. And so anyone who continues to break the law in the sense of running that red light, I think they should be punished by that. Because we have to consider those that are unfortunate, that have to walk or don't have a car, and that is a very busy intersection. So I've always been in favor of this program. I'm going to continue to be in favor of this program. We've seen it work, and obviously the numbers speak for itself. So I just wanted to, again, put that on for the record. And any other options that my colleagues would like to bring up, I'll gladly support it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Burgess?
Thank you. I just wanted to make a quick correction. I called him Officer Sermon earlier, and I should have, they work hard for their ranks. I want to make sure I call him Lieutenant Sermon, so I apologize.
Lieutenant, let me ask you a question as to Campbell Drive specific. I apologize for being nasally. The white line on Campbell and US 1 being northbound, is probably 3 car lengths, 2.5 car lengths from the corner.
66 feet from the cross street.
Perfect, 66 feet. The problem that my issue with the cameras has always been right-hand turns. I totally believe that anybody that runs a red light should be nailed with a ticket, 100%. My issue has always been the question of the interpretation of right hand on red, because it's legal to turn right on red after you stop in Florida. The question, I guess, is specific to 8 and US 1 is how do you interpret, again, because the line is 66 feet from the corner, if someone were to roll through that line to get a visual line of sight, how do you take that as a failure to stop? Can you tell me, do you take it on that line?
No. What the right-hand turn on red, actually the state law was revised. It originally said careful and prudent, but it further revised it to say that if you stop anywhere before the turn, then that's careful and prudent. So what happens is the detector at that intersection will detect if you're doing 15 miles per hour or more before the stop bar, while the light is red, it will log the event. That's where the officer comes in, and when he reviews that, if that car stops any time before he makes the turn or comes close to stopping, we give it to the driver, and then we reject that violation. So there is an officer that's going to review that, and that's going to be thrown out if they stop or come somewhere close to stopping to where it was careful enough that they could have seen any pedestrians in the crosswalk, on the sidewalk waiting to cross, or cross traffic. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely, because that seems to be the one where, again, if I get a letter from someone that's upset with the ticket, they usually show me the picture of their car stopped somewhere in that 66 feet, or their interpretation of being stopped somewhere in that 66 feet.
Well, we get a lot of people in the lobby asking the same questions, and they show us the pictures. And of course, when you're rolling through a stop, your foot is on the brake pedal, but you're still rolling. So the still photograph will show the brake lights are on. So it's easy to come and say, hey, look, I was stopped, but there's always a video to go along with it. And we have in our business rules that if there's no video to go with that event, we automatically reject it. So there has to be a video so we can determine whether or not they were slow rolling, how fast they were going, was it careful and prudent, did they stop and check? These are all the things that myself and my officers look at before we accept a violation.
And I guess one other question, the $158 tickets, that's the standard ticket, right? $158?
Yes, that's mandated by the state law.
So percentage-wise, where does that money go? I mean, can
I defer to?
Yeah, this is a general question, I'm sorry.
He'll know this right off the top of his head.
So it's a great question, and I appreciate you asking because there's a lot of confusion about it. So the $158, $83 goes to the state, Florida Department of Transportation. Out of that $83, $10 of every violation goes to your local trauma centers. Of course, for us, it's Jackson Memorial. $3 of that of every violation goes to the Miami to Cure Paralysis. They keep $75. The other $75 comes to the city. That's how the breakout is of the fines.
Okay. All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Williams?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Mayor. And I think with this, let me ask you a question about your fees. Would you help us understand the fees that we pay to ATS, and how does that work in the revenue sharing agreement that we have? And before you do that, let me make this statement because I've been not a victim, but of red light cameras. Oh yeah, a couple times. So the first time I didn't get it. Second time I got it, and the third time. But it didn't happen in Homestead. It happened somewhere else. But you know, a still picture doesn't tell you. You know, a photograph just it. You know, see here, it says, yeah, well, it ain't moving. So of course, it's not going to really tell you from the picture standpoint until you go online to actually see. But how can we, before the state got its hands in this pot, how does the fees work out as it relates to ATS and the city?
So that was before I started with the company. I don't want to misspeak on how it was. What I can speak to is post July 2010, when the Mark I Dahl Act was enacted, was when they changed it to a flat fee for fine for the violation. But they also changed this for the vendors that do, because it's not just ATS, there's other vendors in Florida.
Right.
What they did is they changed it to where there's a flat fee per camera. So what we do is, as we probably did with Homestead, there was an initial investment for the technology and the construction of the technology. ATS fronts that money so the program can start, and then ATS has a monthly fee per camera that's charged throughout the term of the agreement.
Oh, okay.
And so it's based on a flat camera price. I am told that before 2010 it was by citation, so I know that that was one of the changes that they made in July of 2010 in the legislature.
And how many cameras do we have in Homestead?
You currently have 4.
Four.
We've had 4 throughout the term of the agreement.
Right. And have there been any suggestions in any other areas, or maybe that's for the lieutenant of traffic? Have you seen any other areas in which heightened accidents or have happened in a certain particular sector of Homestead?
There have been about 10 different intersections analyzed several times throughout this program that would be good locations to add additional locations if it comes down to it. But yes.
So what's do you? You may not know, or but I'm pretty sure that you probably do. But could you maybe give me an example of one of those or two of those intersections that you're referring to out of the 10?
Northeast 8th Street and 18th Avenue, which is 312 and 162. That intersection itself, we have a lot of accidents there, and there's quite a few red light runners there. That would that one scored out to get 3 cameras at that location. East Maury and North Homestead Boulevard, I believe that one evaluated for 2 other cameras. It's been quite some time since we did it. I believe it's been over a year, so I don't remember the other intersections right off the bat.
But how many would you say accidents you said that you think have maybe perhaps in your best educated guess?
How many accidents
per that year? We have within the Homestead area?
Oh, we have a lot of accidents. My
professional with the red, with intersections. Right. The T-bone.
T-bone accidents, red light pedestrian accidents, bicycle accidents. A lot of those are during, at the intersection. And which is a great thing when there's a camera, because it captures it and we can actually determine cause and fault and what have you.
And have you, I mean, your best of your knowledge, have we found, using in those cameras, I know it was mentioned that those cameras have probably helped perhaps help in some investigations that probably we've not had any knowledge of, but help to solve any cases that because of the cameras being in those locations?
Yes, we've pulled the camera over 50 times for investigations. I've solved about a half a dozen hit and run accidents using the camera system themselves. We've used it for a homicide investigation for Miami-Dade Police Department. We've used it for a traffic homicide investigation. Also, there was an officer-involved shooting that we used the cameras for. So there's many aspects that the cameras are pulled for, and it monitors 24/7. 365, the cameras are rolling, so it's not just when there's a violation.
When there's a violation, and they've helped to solve cases in some.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to move this. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Motion carries. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Lieutenant. Tab 3.
Mayor, this is the RT Automotive LLC proposed First Amendment to contract. RT Automotive requested this be brought back to council, and Lillian Arango from Weiss Serota is here to give the background on this.
Okay, who's here from the applicant? Okay, there's Jay. If you guys could step up to the podium, please. Thank you, sir.
Mayor,
Mr. Burgess?
just for a transparency, I want to let everybody know that I did meet with these folks prior to the holidays, but have not spoken to them since.
Thank you, sir. Okay, on tab 3, are there any questions from council at this particular point? I'd like to start off with any questions for Mr. Ripken. Do you want to have a presentation? Because we've seen this over and over again.
Yeah, the only question I have is whether you wanted Lily to go through the requested changes or whether you've read the memo and it's not necessary.
Okay.
Want her to go through it? Is that all right, Mayor?
Yes, please.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and Council.
One second, just to put a little perspective. The changes in front of you are, as you remember, we had the long meeting and we made those changes. These are additional changes that have been requested by the buyer. So Lily's going to go through the changes that they've requested.
This was predicated on the motion at the last meeting that came out.
After the last meeting, we drafted a amendment that was in compliance with what the council did at that meeting.
Okay.
RT has requested additional changes beyond what was approved by the council at the last meeting. We've had a very nice discussion with them. We've told them that we couldn't make the additional changes without council approval, and they then requested that these matters come up in front of the council so that you could then authorize either us to make the changes or not make the changes. Okay, sorry, Lily.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. You should have before you in your agenda packet a memo which I prepared. It summarizes buyer's proposed changes as contained in this First Amendment. You should also have with you a red line of the First Amendment, which shows the changes that were approved by council or directed by council on October 13th of last year, and those that are now proposed by the buyer. Those new changes are shown in red. They're underlined or strike through and highlighted in red. Having said that, I'll summarize what the changes are. The first change is Section 7 to the agreement. It deals with the permitted use of the property. You may recall that on October 13th, Council directed us to amend the contract to require use of the property as a dealership, either Hyundai or other new car dealership, and for no other use. That language is included in Section 7. Buyer is now proposing to add a few limitations or restrictions on that language. The first is the restriction on use would be for 5 years. If buyer violates that restrictions, which it may, during that 5-year period, it would pay the city $200,000 as liquidated damages. And payment is the only recourse the city would have for violation of the use restriction. The third thing is that the restriction would not be applicable to an institutional lender who acquires ownership of the property through foreclosure or deed in lieu of foreclosure, or what the buyer has deemed a qualified transferor, which is the buyer as a debtor in possession of the property, a receiver of the property, or a bankruptcy trustee who transfers the property to a third party after the institutional loan is in default. Section 8 pertains to a prohibition against sale or transfer of the property. That section contains a restriction on the buyer selling or transferring the property or any direct or indirect interest in the buyer entity, and Mr. Ripchin's change therein. Buyer has proposed the changes and limitations that are set forth in the memo under B. The first is a restriction on that sale or transfer restriction limited to 5 years. The sale or transfer could occur in the event of the death or disability of J. Ripchin. The buyer may violate that sale or transfer restriction during the 5-year period if it pays the city $200,000 as liquidated damages. Again, Payment would be the only recourse available to the city for violation of the sale restriction. Fourth, buyer's total liability for violation of both of these restrictions, being the use and the sale and transfer restriction, shall not exceed $200,000. And lastly, that sale transfer restriction would not be applicable in the event of the death or disability of Mr. Ripchin, or if an institutional lender acquires ownership of the property through foreclosure or deed in lieu of foreclosure, or a qualified transferor, which is the buyer, a receiver, or a bankruptcy trustee, acquires title to the property after default of the mortgage. All of the foregoing changes proposed by buyer are within the discretion of the council to approve or disapprove any or all changes.
Okay. Mr. Williams?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mayor. And for the record, I've not talked to Mr. Richardson about his contract or anything, or the changes proposed to this in this light today. But let me ask a prudent question. Is this because of this, these are the only changes?
Yes, what is shown in red in
This
that
is it.
addendum is what is proposed by buyer, correct?
So the rest of the contract is okay, okay with what you all have discussed?
Yes, that's correct. The changes proposed are those set forth in red by the buyer.
Another question. Because of these changes, is it because of these changes that anything has to do with financing of this deal, or do you know?
Councilman, I think that the buyer would be best equipped to answer that question.
All right.
Mayor, council, staff, thank you guys for taking your time to listen to us again. My name's Greg Traveling, 16501 South Dixie Highway, Palmetto Bay, Florida, 33157. What you guys are looking at in front of you right now is our best attempt, working with your attorney and our attorney and our lenders, to make this deal financeable. We put some teeth in there for the city to give the city the $200,000, and yeah, everything that was changing here was strictly on behalf of the lenders.
So the lenders would not approve your bid because of what?
So the issues we presented with the city, got from the last meeting to the lenders. The issues were there was no control over title of the property. It would basically go in the hands of the city first before they could foreclose on it. They had no asset to secure the loan the way the language was written before.
That's it?
That's it, yes.
And so if these changes are approved, what happens next?
Once these changes are approved, we're good. We're moving right now with the city. Actually, we're going to be here again tomorrow night. Once we get through all of our zoning approvals, we're moving forward. Everything's going well.
So your lender has said if these changes, these changes will be what is necessary in order for you to finish up this?
Yes, sir.
This is it?
This is it. We're good with this.
This is done?
Done.
And so, thank you so much. To our attorney, is there anything in here that perhaps you all may have had a robust conversation about other than just these changes within the document as it relates to what they have presented to you all and you all brought back to us?
Well, I have discussed with their counsel, Tom Lumpkin, the changes that were proposed.
I'm sorry, it's hard to hear you. Yeah.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, sorry.
Okay. We have discussed with their counsel, Tom Lumpkin, the changes that have been proposed, and they're all summarized in the memo, and they're contained within that proposed First Amendment.
And as our attorney on this transaction, how well do you feel comfortable with this as it relates to your confident level of this?
Well, again,
in
counsel,
your professional opinion?
They are policy discretionary decisions of this council, whether or not the contract is amended to reflect these changes. Certainly legally, we will review the amendment and make sure the city is protected from a legal perspective, but whether or not the changes are actually approved is within your discretion.
I understand that, but where it's written, I'm saying, is legally sufficient for your viewing, and what your professional opinion is what I'm asking you.
Well, I think the language as proposed, the one shown in red, could use some clarification
All
and
right, that's where I'm
finalizing.
going at. So what will be that clarification?
Well, some of the things, the way that it's written, we could work together with
You can work
Mr.
together
Lundgren.
without,
Yes.
but as of right now, there are a few items that needs to be changed
Yes,
to
and-
protect the city from our standpoint.
Right, not from a discretionary or policy perspective,
you.
but just from how drafted legally, how it's drafted and written, correct?
All right, okay, thank you.
Mr. Burgess?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. And thank you to all the parties that have been working on this, because this has been going on for a long time, and I know that it's not easy going back and forth. The only point of contention that I still have is I understand that the banks need specific things and language to keep them, to have collateral if something is to happen. And I'm fine with the way that that's written. The one thing that I still have a bone of contention with is if you guys walk away, if somebody comes in there in a year and says, here's $6 million, and they turn it into Johnny's car lot, you give us $200,000 and walk away. And I'm not, that doesn't satisfy what I was trying to do back at the other. I want to know that in 5 years, R&T Automotive is going to be there with a dealership. That's what I need. So I'm good with the things that you need for the lenders and all that. That language is fine. But the deal that you can walk away within 5 years and just give us $200,000 and whatever goes on that property goes on that property, I'm not satisfied with that clause. So that's my opinion, and I don't know if they want to try to assure me of something or what they want to try to do. The lender's language, I'm fine, and I understand that has to be done to obtain loans. But that one phrase still doesn't get me where I need to be from our last meeting.
Yeah, Mr. Burgess, what we offer up to the council is our reputation in the market. We all kind of know each other. We've been here so many times and back and forth. We're going to build a facility. You guys are all going to have the final approval on the facility. We're going to spend a lot of money on this property. We have a franchise behind it. Highest and best use for that property and for us would be with a franchise with it. So if, God forbid, we were to go away, we were to default on our loan, that property wouldn't be there anymore. The highest and best use and likelihood of that property is going to be the Hyundai franchise that we're getting approval for. That's my best attempt, Jay. If you have something you want to add to that.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Nice to see you again. Happy New Year. I guess it all comes down to all the time went back and forth and negotiating these deals. We're expected to spend well over approximately about $20 million plus to operate the store between construction and land and working capital and the also inventory. It's going to cost us quite a bit of money, and it's going to take us a long time for us to make up the cost. So 5 years is still not going to be enough for us to get our money back. And it's pretty clear right now, the Hyundai Motor, this will be the last new car franchise they're going to put on in the state of South Florida, possibly even Florida, definitely in South Florida. So by me going away, I will sell this property to somebody else. That's not what my intent is. That's not what our background is. So only thing I can tell you is that if I had a way to make this a contract together with a bank without this cost, because a bank is simply saying, any bank in that matter, that for me to be guaranteed that I'm going to be there, it's almost impossible. And I've done just about everything. That's why I keep coming back, showing good faith to everybody that that is not what our intent.
Mr. Williams?
Thank you so much. Mayor, and this is just a question to my colleague, Mr. Burgess. Could you restate your statement again so I understand exactly what you're trying to...
Well, I understand that the lenders have given them some hassles about the language that we had tried to instill in the last meeting. And I'm fine with the way that these amendments have been written to protect the lenders and allow them to get their money. But I just, you know, the one issue that comes back to me is that they're allowed to, tomorrow, if we give them this property, they could have somebody on the hook for $4 million, and they could walk away tomorrow, pay the city $200,000, take $1.6 million, and we end up with whoever they sell it to. Yeah, we'd get site plan approval, but once that buyer has the land, they would have it, and they could do, within reason, what the code allows them to do there, and it may not be what our intention is. And that's the one thing, and I'm not saying that's what Mr. Rifkin's, I'm just putting worst case scenario out there. And unfortunately, we've all seen worst case scenarios come back to us here at the city. So I'm just trying to make sure that the city and its citizens are protected, and we're trying to create jobs here. I want to make sure that those jobs are going to be there, and that something else doesn't end up there that's not going to create the 80 or 68 or 70, whatever the number of jobs is as they start, with their growth as they continue on. And that's all I'm trying to protect.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Burgess. To the attorney, what Councilman Burgess have just indicated, what would that look like written?
Well, there would be a use restriction for 5 years. If the buyer wished to violate that and sell the property, flip it, put it to another use, they would pay the city $200,000 as damages, and that would be the end of it. So
what the issue that Mr. Burgess is raising, and his comfort level, so that he's trying to achieve his objective within this transaction, is that written anywhere as of yet? If not, what does it look like to be written?
right, well, it is written that the buyer is obligated to use the property and operate it as a dealership.
So it's already in here?
It's in there, and the use
So his
restriction is in
concern-
that section.
Right, so his concern that he's raising is already in the contract?
Right, the part that the buyer has added is if they wish to violate or use the property for another purpose or sell it, they can do so, even though the restriction is in the contract, provided they pay the city the $200,000 liquidated damage fee.
Okay. All right. I'm just trying to just get clarity, I guess. But Mr. Burgess, because I really want him to feel at ease with this, so I'm trying to see if we can address that issue that is clear and definitive, that what the issues that he's raising. So, because listening to the last tape, and I listened to it last time we were here, and it was, you know, trying to interpret, you know, the transcripts I read and all of that, and trying to really kind of hone in on what the issue is. And so you're saying that that concern is in this amendment here. So I guess my question would be, what else would we need to do, Mr. Burgess?
Well, it's in there, but as the attorney stated, their clause that they're trying to add voids what we have in the contract, where they would be able to, where our contract says they can't do anything with it over 5 years. Their and correct me if I'm wrong, please, their amendment states that they can do what they want to in that 5 years as long as they give us $200,000 and they're free and clear with no recourse from the city.
I guess that's what I'm confused on, because...
Is that correct?
Yeah, just a clarification, the contract as directed, the amendment as directed by council at the October 13th meeting said that the property had to be used as a car dealership, period. Buyer has now come back with further changes, limiting that use restriction to 5 years, and further saying if they do violate the restriction...
Within 5 years.
Within 5 years, if they put the property to another use or sell or transfer, they can do so provided they pay the $200,000 liquidated damages fee.
Okay, so once again, how do we get to the level of what Mr. Burgess Councilman Burgess is trying to achieve in written form? Other than, you know, so taking that out, and then maybe this is for the applicant, taking it out or revising it was for what reason?
So the way it was before, and this was our understanding and the lender's understanding, there was a clause in there where they could never change use whatsoever, and it could be That was their understanding. That was a lender, and that was where they couldn't secure an asset. So what we offered up was some teeth. That's why we put the money in there, the $200,000, and they wanted a time constraint on that, the lender, not an inevitable. It was written that Jay would have to be operating, it would have to be a Hyundai or new car dealership forever. And that's when the bank says, well, we don't know if Jay's going to be around forever, and we don't know if Hyundai's going to be around forever. So that's where they said, well, we have no collateral secure. That's why we offered up something that was teeth. Before, all we were doing was buying a lawsuit for the city. So the money was, okay, here's a penalty. We wanted to sign punitive damages. So the $200,000 will take off the advance they're going to give us and a time frame on it, the 5 years. A few things I missed that I could offer up to Mr. Burgess, and maybe this would make him feel a little more comfortable, is some history in Homestead. The manufacturer's going to have first right of refusal on that, meaning if me and Jay go away, they have right to secure the asset and get somebody else in there as a Hyundai dealer. That would be their intent. And when I say a little history to offer up, Spitzer lost their franchise. They were a Chrysler store. They operated as an independent for a couple of years. And as soon as that franchise became available, they put that franchise back in because it's just a much more valuable business model with a franchise attached to it. We have more ability of financing with a franchise attached to it. You have service and parts where you make warranty with a franchise attached to it. It's the business model as a whole. Any dealer that has a franchise attached to it's a whole lot more profitable than independent. So that's something we can offer up there. This was our best attempt from not just last meeting, but other meetings to put in, I think originally the contract, they wanted a so many year restriction with X amount of dollars. And that was where this all came through. The way it was written from the last motion, no lender would consider this deal. This was just something we were trying to put together to make the council happy, make the attorneys happy, and be able to move forward.
Mayor, do I still have the floor?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. The other thing that we were under the impression, maybe we're wrong, and the attorney could address this, is if there was alternative use to that property in the future, we sold it to somebody, wouldn't the city still have to approve that use?
I don't know. But my question to the attorney, based on what they have just said, what can we put in the contract that will help Councilman Burgess with what he's trying to accomplish, but also that will not bring up red flags with the lender or with their financing? So what is the medium, I guess? What can we do legally to do that, to accomplish his objective and also move, perhaps hopefully move the project forward? Is it a dollar amount? And maybe that's a question for Mr. Burgess, but I don't know. I don't know what the original, I don't remember what the original amount that was in here before we...
Mr. Williams, if I could. In the original document, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was $250,000, correct?
Yes, back in April of last year of 2015, when the contract came before council, there was some provisions proposed by the city which had the use restriction and the no transfer restriction, and the liquidated damages amount contained in that original draft was $250,000.
And what kind of language did it have? You said it had what?
Well, it had a restriction that the property be used as a dealership for 7 years, I believe.
For 7 years. So
and it also had a no sale or transfer provision for 7 years.
For 7 years. So
Yes.
If I could, Mr. Williams, I'll make an
I'll
amendment
yield.
here,
Sure.
since I'm the point. To put some sting in it, I'd like to see a $500,000 number put on it. That way, if you guys flip the land, it's going to sting you guys a little bit, and it's going to give the city some more money too. If you, I'm agreeable to everything else except for the number of $200,000. I'll go forward tonight, and I'll throw the number of $500,000 out there right now, which hurts is sting. I don't care who you are. $500,000 is $500,000, and that's helpful to the city, and that makes you guys, I feel in my heart, would be honest. Not that you're not, but I mean, I think it would hold you to the fire a little more, and I'll leave it at that. So I'll make a motion that the number goes from $200,000 to $500,000 if they were to turn the land over, and that the other things for the lenders, whatever clarification needs to be for the lenders. So if the land is taken and repossessed or defaulted on.
It is to approve it, to approve it with the $500,000?
Yes. instead of 200, if we change it to 500.
Is there
I'll
a
make that
second?
motion.
Is there a second on that motion?
A second.
Okay. Any other discussion? Mr. Rifkin?
Mayor, do I still have the floor? I'm sorry.
You can, yes.
I yielded to Mr. Burgess.
Yeah.
And,
Well, I just wanted to get that out there because we kept, and you were trying to see where my mind was.
Yes, sir.
So I wanted to put that out there in the time, for the sake of time, saving time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Burgess. This is for the applicant. The motion is here, and which belongs to the body now. So he proffered that is to you. What's your idea? You know, how we move? Is that work?
I fully respect and understand what the council and Mr. Burgess is trying to accomplish. That the only concern we have with that dollar amount, and even the 200,000, every dollar we put on there, the bank's gonna look at
Right,
the asset,
right,
and they're
right.
gonna devaluate the asset by that dollar amount. That's why we were able to swallow the 200, 250. We may be able to swallow beyond that. It's just gonna keep making the deal tougher and tougher for us to get in the market, be successful, add jobs, sell cars, and do what we intend to do down in the city of Homestead. That's our concern with that.
If may I add, when we did negotiation on the price of the land, we were already talking to a bank. Now we're talking to two different banks. They made it very clear that the appraisal value versus what the land is worth and where the finance structure was done it was based on paying all the money the city was asking, approximately, just about all the money. And by adding 500,000 is going to kind of load the structure, or it will be extend the structure to the point where it's not going to fit into our a monthly budget or yearly budget or expense control that we're going to have in the dealership. We do want to have a successful dealership, but again, the numbers got to pencil out for monthly and then the yearly. The reason we came out with 200,000 or 250,000 the first time that the city was asking, we're hoping, and it's all hope, that interest rate will stay down. Sooner we open, we would have been better off. And as we all know, the interest rates are going up. So that makes it a little bit more difficult for us right now.
Anything else, Mr. Williams?
No.
Mr. Attorney, just a question in the process here. You know, we've been going over and over this for a very, very long time and renegotiating negotiations from the dais on a regular basis. It's got to get to the point where you know, regardless of the council's feeling as whether or not it's a bankable deal or not, I mean, this is what the council is saying at this point. They want some sort of security, as in, well, the motion is for some sort of additional security to make the council comfort, and that number was 500,000. There's a motion in a second. We haven't voted on that. How long are we going to continue to go back and forth with this? Because, you know, there's got to, if the 500,000 is not a bankable deal for him, is it our responsibility to keep negotiating down? I guess that's what we've been doing from day one on this.
Remember that we're in a position here because they didn't meet their deadline, you remember, on the licensing, and you voted to amend the contract on the licensing to let them off the hook by that. We drafted the amendment. So the amendment has never been signed, though. So, I mean, the council can do whatever it wants here. I mean, if you want to say that this is the arrangement that we're approving, and if you don't like it, we're sorry, but, you know, we're instructing staff that this is the end of it, then you certainly can do that. If you want to continue negotiations, that's certainly up to you as well.
So right now, this motion hopefully should be the last motion, because it's been all over the place, and we've, I think, shown as a council body very good faith in trying to make this deal go through, generally.
Right.
But at some point in time, we've got to, the line's got to be in the sand and say, okay, this is it. This has got to be the final. And I would hope that if this, is the final, whether or not the bank sees it or it affects his ability as an operator to make money or to not make money, shouldn't be necessarily the responsibility of the council. The council's got to have a level of comfort as to what they're doing to protect the taxpayer, in the opinion of the council. So I just would like to see us get to some point where, either we do this deal or we don't do this deal, but this constant dragging out and changing it's getting to be, it's getting to be a little ridiculous. Mr. Burgess, did you have another comment?
I just, my motion and my dollar figure is only if they flip the land. So the lenders should not be worried about that, because that is not theoretically going to happen. And I don't know if they've shared with their lenders that they're going to flip the land or something already, and that is bought into what they're allowed to get. But I don't see how my motion that I've made affects a lender, because it's simply if there's a land flip, nothing else. It's not going to affect, theoretically, according to what you guys are telling me, because you're going to be there and be good neighbors and good business. In 5 years, it's done, and there's nothing there. So in theory, there should be no concern other than that number is there to protect the city. So I call for a vote.
Okay, the motion again is the contract, the only thing changes in the addendum is
It's
the
only on the land flip.
The $500,000.
$500,000 on a land
On a
flip.
land flip. Okay, Richard?
The penalty applied in two different circumstances.
Only on a land flip.
You want to just do it just on sale?
Yep.
Okay.
You're good with that? Okay.
Okay.
Aye.
Is there anyone that would like to be in opposition to the motion? Mr. Shelley, did you?
Yeah, are we going to call a vote, or?
Yeah, I'm calling a vote, okay.
Then when we call a vote, I'll vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. How many nays? 3 nays?
4 yeas and 3 nays.
3 nays, 4
Why don't you
yeas.
just, you want to?
Roll call it?
Roll call.
Roll
Call
call
for
it.
division of the House.
Councilman Williams?
Aye.
Councilman Maldonado? Councilman Shelley?
No.
Councilman Burgess?
Yes.
Councilman Roth?
No.
Vice Mayor Fairclough?
Yes to the motion.
Mayor Porter?
No. Motion carries.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, Jay. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, tab 4.
Tab 4, Mayor, is CDBG entitlement surplus funds. There's currently $141,221 in surplus. Staff recommends that Mayor and Council approve the reallocation of Community Development Block Grant CDBG surplus funds. The following is the proposed reallocation. Grants for senior citizen activities, $46,041. YMCA daycare drainage project, $40,000. Soup kitchen renovations, $20,000. And public facilities for $35,180 for a total of $141,221.
Mr. Mayor, I'm told there's a speaker that wants to speak.
I think Mr. Burgess just said so. Mr. Williams, did you say you wanted to say something?
Sure, I'll be brief. Tim Williams, the owner of some property out by the Turnpike off of 152nd Avenue. We're excited about that project. You guys are familiar with that property. We've kind of preserved the opportunity for the potential of community development block grant funding for that project in the past. Not with this exact council. I think there's 1 or 2 people have changed out since then. I just wanted to say that that project is still ongoing. We actually have a planning and zoning board meeting tomorrow for site plan approval for that hotel. They are anxious to begin, and 30 days from the time they get their permit, they will be breaking ground. So that could be a project that you guys want to consider. Certainly don't want to take away from any of those other great projects here in the city, but don't forget about our site. So that's just wanted to kind of remind you of that. And that is an ongoing project. We've been finally getting it through the entitlement process, and it'll be in front of you guys shortly. So. Just wanted to raise that. Thank you.
All right, sir. Who, in this, sir? Go ahead.
It's about a $35 million project with about 52 employees. New jobs to the city.
The staff basically makes the decision, does the analysis on these, on who gets these CDGB dollars granted to them, correct? You have a
I'll let Carlos explain in more detail.
Mayor and Council, yes. What you have before you is actually reallocation of surplus funds. These were funds that were previously allocated for different things, either different projects or for administrative services. They weren't used, so we found, and these are our recommendations, for two existing projects that had previously been funded, the soup kitchen and the YMCA drainage projects. Those were two projects that had been previously approved, but when you go out there and the estimates that we're receiving, they need additional funding. So that's part of what the recommendation is. The other one is we did receive certain amount of monies that we're recommending for public services, but in this case, a recommendation is to gear it towards senior citizens' activities if the council so chooses. Normally, when we go out for public services for grants, it's usually, you know, they can apply for any type of services that would qualify, but there was a recommendation that, you know, to try to gear it towards senior citizens. What the gentleman was speaking about earlier is the project. That relates more to something that came before you earlier with the golf project, which would be an economic development project. And if you recall in that one, it would require the same thing that would have been required in that project. It would require changing the 5-year plan and certain other things. So that's different than what's before you. I just want to make that clear.
Okay. Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The Senior Citizen Activities Project is something that I brought forth about 1.5 years ago because there is a gap in services as it relates to programming for senior citizens, particularly in the Southwest community. We have structured activities going on here at the community center, this community center, but we don't have anything at the FICA Williams Community Center. So I brought this to our lobbyists and to staff to consider reallocating any surplus funds for senior citizen programming, and I'm excited that it is here before us tonight. The YMCA daycare drainage project, that is our facility, so it's very important for us to maintain that building, so I definitely support that. The soup kitchen renovations, I see that we previously allocated $100,000 to the soup kitchen. By looking at it, I would have never known we allocated $100,000. So where are we with the final renovations for that facility? Is $20,000 going to get it to where it needs to be?
That is my understanding. It's originally when they went in there with the original estimates, some of the repairs that needed to be done were more extensive than originally anticipated. So part of the original scope of the project wasn't able to be completed, so that's why we're recommending these additional $20,000.
Okay, I definitely support that because we really, really need to renovate that facility to make it somewhere where people can sit down and eat with dignity and decency. As far as the public facilities project, what is that exactly?
Inflow and infiltration, usually throughout the year there's numerous projects. We've done a lot of I&I in the past, so this is really setting aside in case Public Works does identify other areas. We've got these funds set aside for that.
Oh, okay. Okay, I definitely support all 4 of these projects. They're definitely mission critical for the city, and I encourage my colleagues to support them as well.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Mr. Williams?
Thank you, Mayor. Couple of questions, and maybe this is in your presentation, Carlos, when you said that it was recommended by what, by who?
As we do in the past, we usually go out for grant allocations every year, and in the past, the soup kitchen had submitted for a project for repairs of their public facilities, and the same thing with the YMCA for their drainage project. Unfortunately, the scope that they had estimated that the cost would be once these projects get underway, it turns out that they're costing a little bit more. Some projects come in under. In these 2 cases, it's over. But these were some that had been approved and brought before this council and approved by this council.
So, back to my question. but you came back to us saying that these were recommended. That's what I'm trying to get. You're saying based on the history of where we have given money prior to before, except for the senior citizen activity. Is that what you're saying?
The YMCA, no, I'm sorry, I apologize. What I meant is the YMCA project and the soup kitchen project were projects that had been previously approved by this council. So these are, additional funding for those projects. The other two, it's a recommendation by staff. It is ultimately up to this council to decide what to do with those funds.
Okay. So my question is, if that's a policy area, am I right? So staff within its idea, that's what I'm trying to get at, made that recommendation to us with who conversation, if I see this as a policy decision, so I'm trying to get to the meat of what you're how you arrived at this. Then two, is that, how much have we given to the soup kitchen, and then what was it for? We're saying over time we've given them $100,000, and then this is an additional 20. What did they do? What did they buy?
It was for the original scope of services, and I apologize, I don't have the details, but it was the original scope of services, which included mostly repairs and renovations of that facility.
Okay. Like what? Because I'm looking at the building every day, and I'm trying to figure out where did the $100,000 go towards what?
Some roofing and engineering as well. And ADA accessibility.
The what?
ADA accessibility for disabled.
I understand what that is. That came up to a total of 100,000?
That's what's been expended so far, yes, and the additional...
Over how many, I'm sorry, over how many years?
No, that was just one project, one time that they submitted it. It was for one scope of services. They had requested 100,000 was the original request. That's what was awarded to them, and all the work that had been done so far, the repairs and some of the work that was done, it's exceeded the additional allotment. But it was just a one-time $100,000 award to them.
So this is an additional 20,000?
That's correct.
Wow. I'm trying to figure out what it was. Because they could have bulldozed that building down and built a new one with this kind of money. Because I've been in the facility several times. It's not that. I don't know. I guess in order for me to say I agree with this, it is a worthy cause, of course, and I know they've had some restructuring in their organization, and I just need to know. I need to see it. I need to see what you're talking about for 100,000. I just don't comprehend other than what I see: a facade, some paint, and some more new paint on a handwritten sign or drawing sign. So. To help me here, because I'm not really comfortable with what you've just told me as relates to $100,000 we've already put into the project, into that facility, and they're having sustainability issue with insurance and don't. So I don't. What is when you all do these analysis? What do you look for as far as the sustainability of the organization? Because my understanding is not stable at this moment in time. There's a lot of infighting and different things of that nature, which is neither here nor there. But I can't try to imagine $120,000 we put in a building that I don't see the value in which we have given that for.
Councilman, that I don't. Some of the information you're talking about is not necessarily what goes into the analysis. What goes into the analysis at the time that they submitted the original project was, you actually look at the facility, that the facility is owned, that it's not just being rented, so that therefore if for some reason, after a year or two, that there is some kind of a lien or something that can be put on the property to recover some of those funds. So ownership of the property is one thing, that the facility does provide to low and moderate income people, that it provides a service to the city. Those are the types of things that we look at, and we do analyze the scope of work to be done, and at the time it was felt that would cover it. But like with any repair of old facilities, you find out that yes, sometimes In hindsight, it's cheaper to build something from scratch than when you go in there to try to repair something.
So here's my point. I remember vividly last year them trying to buy a refrigerator of some sort. And they came to individuals of council, made their plea, what have you, to try and buy a refrigerator of some sort. And struggling trying to get a 1,000 or 200 at the most refrigerator, and I don't see how we're putting this money in the building, and they are struggling to buy equipment. Is part of this going to equipment?
No.
Or what? That it's just outside. It's just the structure itself.
Structure or things that are more of a permanent nature. Like if it was a built-in refrigerator, then yes. But my understanding is what she was looking for was for like a portable refrigerator. The CDBG funds do not go to something like that because then you have to track it. It can be moved. It can be relocated. So usually when it's money for a facility, it's the bricks and mortar or something that is more of a permanent nature attached to the building.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. And my other question is dealing with the YMCA. How much money? I remember vividly. I think almost 500 grand that we were looking at for HVAC unit and those. How much money have we put into our own building using these dollars? And then what is this drainage piece?
Inclusive of the drainage piece, since 2012, we've awarded them about $262,000 for various projects or services, because they've also done public service programs.
Prior to that, I think the city also put it beyond the CDBG dollars. Do you have any knowledge of that?
I'm not aware of that at this point.
Okay, all right. So this will be a total of how much from community development block grant?
For this particular project, their estimate, the original scope of work was for $45,000. The request is for an additional 40. It's for their drainage improvement. They've got extensive flooding in there. They have to put sandbags. They have another project that's on hold because until this is repaired and done, they can't move on with the other project. The other project is for flooring at that daycare center, and we can't do that because of the damage.
Okay. Well, and one other thing. I know it's our building. What are they responsible for? The YMCA, the organization. What are they responsible for as it relates to the building aspect? In their lease, how much do we rent it to them for $1 a year? Or what is the structure of such? Do they pay?
Councilman, I don't have that information with me. I know we have a lease with the YMCA.
We could bring that back to you, Councilman. I don't know offhand what it is, but we could certainly bring that back.
All right. Okay. If you can get those two questions, please, answered, then I'm good. And as it relates to the grants for the senior activities, how is that going to be structured?
If this council approves us going forward with that, we would basically advertise for non-for-profit organizations that would cater to senior citizens. And I just want to make clear, is the direction also that their programs are located in the FICO Williams? Is that something additional that the council would want to do, that specify that, or just in general within the city?
My understanding from the vice mayor is that it was specifically for FICO Williams. Okay. That's the only way I want to support it.
And again, that's strictly policy on your part. You direct us to do that.
Yeah, I
we'll
understand.
cater, we'll advertise it that way. Then any non-for-profit organizations that would submit, they would be reviewed and brought back to you ultimately to make the decision for the awards.
Okay, so whoever makes the motion, if they would include somehow that it be specifically advertised for the FICO Williams Community Center for those activities, then I'm comfortable with that. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Burgess?
No, I just wanted, most of my questions have been answered. You know, they were what was going to happen with the senior citizen activities, you know, what was that? But I've got sincere concerns about giving the soup kitchen $20,000 without them coming here with a plan of what they're going to do with it. Because we've given them $100,000, as my colleague stated. I've been there. They were here begging for money to get a refrigerator. Last year, they shut down for a while. Yeah. And we have no accountability of where that $100,000 really went. So if this body would like to give them $20,000, in my eyes, they need to come to us and state to us and show us what that $20,000 is going to go to. We can't continue to hand out funds to people that don't have any accountability for them. Thank you.
Kate, did you have something you wanted to say?
I had actually two things, Mayor. Councilman Williams indicated there were two questions he wanted brought back answers for, one of which was the YMCA costs, but I wasn't clear what the other one was, and that's it.
No, I'm sorry, Kate. Say that
You
again.
mentioned, Councilman, that you had two questions that you wanted answered. You wanted us to come back, and I just wasn't clear on what the first question was.
Well, one was the soup kitchen, and, you know...
Okay, understood, and I understood
Okay.
it, and now I okay.
And the other was the...
And in conjunction with what Councilman Burgess said, we can
Yes,
get
and
more
the other was the
information and bring it out.
YMCA.
Understood.
How much we have, you know,
Okay.
given over, of course, time, including the city and these grant funds, along with, well, you know, what they're responsible for as a tenant in the building. And here's where I'm going with it, is that I believe, and the YMCA is not a small organization. It's so, you know, it's a added value for quality of life, but at the same time, you know, and there's no dollar amount, but just so that everybody, well, for me, so I'm comfortable exactly how much we have invested within that of their, you know, of their programmatic success, and, you know, what they have done over the years. And I think that it helps us, or helps me per se, to really, you know how much value we're putting into the quality of life of it. Not trying to give them a hard time or anything, or stop any progression of the item, but just trying to get some more added facts of what we have done as a city in order that they might be viable. Because the other issue for me is that I don't think you can have enough services for our youth within the life of our city. And I think the more we have, and the more we show that we've invested in these kind of facilities for these programmatic services, the better off I think we are to really find other monies to help. But I need to know exactly how much we have given in all of that and what the arrangement is. I know it's come before us a while back, and I'm just not familiar with the current arrangement. So that's basically where I'm headed with that.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Mr. Shelley?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, same kind of similar questions on the soup kitchen. The 100,000, is that over time? Was that last fiscal year? Was that 5 years ago? When was that particular grant approved?
That was awarded in the year cycles in 2011, 2012.
2011, so it's been quite...
But it took a while to get working. I think they had to get some engineers to work on, you know, the work that needed to be done. So it took a while in actually coming to fruition.
Okay, and so that as of now, the 100,000 has been completely expended, and so without the additional 20,000, no additional work can be done?
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah, so I had similar concerns with my colleagues, and that is that, you know, looking at the organization, looking at the facility, to think that $100,000 has been invested in that facility over the last 3-4 years would also be very surprising to me after looking at it. So I think I concur with what Councilman Burgess had proposed, and that is I think that for the soup kitchen's purposes, I'd like to see more of a full plan. Before the city agrees to invest more of our dollars that could go to other programmings or other places, I'd like to see what their plan is. I know that they have restructured. I know they have, you know, a new chairperson or executive director there. So I would like to see that before we continue. Plus, it puts them on notice that we want to make sure that we have a quality product and that they're getting their act together to make sure that they're serving the community the way that we all want them to serve the community. And then on the YMCA thing, I also remember too that I think when we renegotiated the lease with them, I know Dennis had most of the information because he was the one that was in charge of it. But we had made that request back then, and I can't remember how many years ago it was now, that we wanted to see them invest in our community. We wanted to see them invest in the building as a condition, and I think they did make a commitment. I know there's someone in the audience. I don't know if they want to give any information, but I think it was a pretty substantial amount annually to make sure that we were constantly getting improvements. And I know that the Y has done a good job of making improvements, and it looks a lot better now than it did before that lease was entered into. But I don't recall the exact amount either. So I support I support everything moving forward. However, I would like the soup kitchen portion to maybe be pulled and a more thorough discussion had on that particular item.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I think it's important for us to understand two things. One is the fact that these are surplus funds that are being reallocated so they don't go to waste. So there's more money coming, and there are a lot of very deserving nonprofits in the community, and I encourage them to apply for these CDBG funds. It can be a cumbersome process, but the money is there. If they want it, I encourage them to apply. And two, I think it's very important to understand what you can purchase with what you can apply for as it relates to public service and public facilities. Now, the refrigerator that the soup kitchen needed can't be purchased under public facilities. However, it could have been purchased under public services, if I understand that correctly. Is that correct? But they didn't apply for.
We usually, again, for something like that, we would probably frown on it. When they do public services, we would look at something that's more consumable, because otherwise the program's over, and then they have the equipment that they can be using for other things,
So with saying that, I just can't in good conscience say that there's $100,000 being put into the soup kitchen and we don't know where the money went. Well, as elected officials and staff, I think it's very incumbent upon us to have those checks and balances in place to ensure that the money that we are allocating is effectively and efficiently expended. So moving forward, I think it's very important for us to ensure that the money we are giving them or allowing them to have to revitalize or renovate their building, that is actually happening. I know there were some leadership and structural issues going on there, but we have to do our part as well. So I can't just have them shoulder the responsibility for not properly expending the $100,000. I agree with the recommendation from my colleagues requesting a plan of action for the $20,000 before we move forward with that. But as a body and as a staff, I think it's very important for us to do our due diligence and ensure that those checks and balances are in fact in place. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Roth?
To follow up with what my colleagues up here are saying, when the soup kitchen, you say, gets $100,000 to do some improvements on their property, who controls payments to contractors and vendors, or are we handing them the $100,000 and allowing them to just pay as they go?
No, sir. We usually pay the contractors directly when they submit the invoices, and most of the time we have our grants administrator that actually goes out and reviews the work that's been done to date before we release the funds.
So we do have a trail and a way to track everything they spent their monies on, and we can go and verify that as well.
Yes, and we will provide a report. We'll prepare a report tomorrow on where the money has been expended to date, and specifically the money that's being requested, what it's for.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Williams?
Yeah, and I agree, but here's the issue, and I do due diligence before I try to make statements, and this is not the first time that we've asked for reports or statuses or checks to be sent to us so that these items could be answered. And I did it with SOS, asked for, on different reports, and they start doing it, but then as time go on, reports stop coming, and I've been in very much favor of the soup kitchen. I'm asking just so, and maybe this piece is for staff, is that when we're looking at items such as this of level of importance and issuing out dollars and stuff, that the supplement of the material that you provide in your car should include at least the basic questions of when, where, how, and how much, in the past, if there has been any. And so when we get here and we look for those kind of documents or answers a question, it's so that in good faith as a reminder of what we have allocated in the past and seen exactly what they have done or updated within their facility is so that we know, for me, that I'll know exactly what going forward the $20,000 is for or however. And I just think that when we request things, it happens, a couple of days after, and then as soon as, that's over, and then it comes back before us, I'm reminded the reports have not continued, and every time I'm asking the same questions, and I'm asking for the same reports, and it's not consistent. So maybe what I'm trying to say is that I need consistency in how you all disseminate information to council, so that when it comes up and these allocations are, we have a history of how much we have given that organization, what it was for, and some details within that, so to make it a little bit more easier for the decision to be made. And that's exactly what I'm trying to accomplish with what my statements are.
Hey, Carlos, is this time sensitive?
It just holds up the project, but if they really want this $20,000 for the work that's needed, then we will put forward what's needed. What I guess the direction I'm getting is everything else looks like we maybe can move forward, but we can pull the 20,000, and we will bring back that at a later time with all the information that's being requested by council, where the 100,000 has been spent, where the 20,000 is going to be spent, awards that have been given in the past, so we can bring that back as a separate item. At least that's the direction I'm understanding.
That's why I'm asking if it's all time sensitive. We've got till the next meeting. You can provide that information subsequent to someone pulling it off or letting it go if it was to pass tonight, or we defer this. We don't pass this tonight, and you bring back more information to us.
I'd rather we pull the portion for the Homestead Soup Kitchen, when we'll bring that back at a separate time, because the YMCA is one that project does need to move forward. It's been held up, and again, it's holding up another project for it.
Okay, Lynn, let me ask, is there a motion to move it minus the...
Motion to move it forward, pulling back the soup kitchen.
With the soup kitchen now. Mr. Williams, and second by Mr. Shelley. Mr. Williams?
Yes. The whole piece of this is surplus funds. So when you tell me that their project is being held up, I don't see how that is so if these are surplus funds. If these are surplus funds, how can a project be held up because of us? I just don't get that. If these are surplus funds, how can you tell us that their project is being held up because we are holding surplus funds?
Councilman,
and these are the staff recommendation to the council on these. So how can they have an idea that this is going to pass and giving us the impression that we're holding up something when these are surplus funds? When, come on, I mean, really, it's not an application that they put in as it relates to, contingent upon these are surplus funds. You made the recommendations of your staff. You told me how you got to that resolve. And to tell me today that we're holding up a project, I can't, you want me to swallow that. I'm not going to do that.
Well, Councilman,
these are define surplus for me.
Surplus, basically, it's from prior years, at least for the last 2 years, because prior to that, we had brought back to you surplus funds. So basically, in the last 2 years, projects that have either come under or administrative costs that were not expended. And the only reason I say that is because the YMCA was aware that we had surplus funds. We hadn't gotten this to council earlier, but they were aware of that, so they have been waiting for that. That's the only reason why,
Councilman. You give the impression that there's a project waiting and we're holding it up. And what I'm trying to say is, philosophically, I have a problem with that. I moved the project forward. All I asked for was what we spent the money on. But to say, yeah, that's what I asked for. Okay, I'm done. Mayor, I'm moving. I'm done.
Vice Mayor?
Just for a point of clarification, for me, how I understand this is the YMCA was originally allocated $45,000 for this particular project. But since they received one bid that came in higher, they needed more money to be able to complete this project. So as a result, and with the awareness of the additional funding, i.e. the surplus funds, that is why this project was recommended for the proposed increase.
Correct, and what I meant about another project is they have another project for the flooring at the daycare center. That project cannot move forward until the drainage project is completed.
And just to add to that, I was there, I think about a month ago. I met with representatives from the YMCA and I toured the building, and they communicated that to me, that they couldn't move forward with the flooring project because of the drainage issue that I saw firsthand. So that is my understanding and interpretation of the rationale for the proposed increase.
And Mayor and Council, we'll bring back a full report so that all of these questions are answered and it's clear exactly what transpired and what projects we're talking about.
Okay, so the motion is to move this forward minus the soup kitchen with the additional requirement for the senior citizen activities to be predicated in the southwest end of Michael Williams. Is that correct? We clear? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Tab 5.
Mayor, tab 5 is the master lease agreement with SunTrust Equipment Finance and Leasing Corporation. The master lease agreement with SunTrust was entered into back in 2004, and over the last 11 years, the city has financed several lease purchases and vehicle and equipment pursuant to the original master lease agreement. But because the original agreement was first executed in 2004, SunTrust has requested entering into an updated agreement. All the terms and conditions of the original master lease are included in the attached agreement. Staff recommends that Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution and authorize the city manager to enter into an updated master lease agreement between SunTrust Equipment Finance and Leasing Corporation, SunTrust, and the City of Homestead.
Questions from council? Is there a motion? Move it. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Any final comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Tab 6.
Tab 6 is a request for waiver of usage fees. Run for Life supports a statewide effort called Knights of Columbus, Florida State Charities. Run for Life is requesting Mayor and Council authorize the city manager to approve a waiver of usage fees in the amount of $750 for the use of William Bill Dickinson Community Center Banquet Hall and Kitchen on February 20th, 2016 to conduct their annual fundraising dinner to raise money for organizations that provide emergency shelters, crisis pregnancy centers, and maternity homes for mothers who have nowhere to go.
Is the applicant here? Yes, sir.
Mayor, Council, Dias et al. My name is Chuck Rosner, and this is my assistant here, Pedro Nunez Martin. We're part of a group that has been active for the last 27 years to raise these funds, which were mentioned in the application. The city has been kind enough to allow us the use of the hall for the last several years, this banquet hall, and everybody that has come here has enjoyed the beautiful property. I'm a member of the center here, and I've enjoyed the use of the property over the last 8 years since I retired. At any rate, through the generosity of the city, we've raised about $3,000 a year at this facility. If we did not get it donated to us, that's much less money that we're able to give out to these organizations that we sponsor. We raise about $20,000 to $30,000 a year between Homestead and St. Augustine through the generosity of other cities as well as yourself. And we're asking again for the use of with the waiver. That's it.
Mr. Williams?
Yes, Mayor. Thank you. I agree with the use, maybe for what you all are trying to do. Thank my support on that. But this particular item or frame of waiving of usage fees, Mayor, when would it be, or maybe Parks and Recs, but Mayor, when will we be able to have a dialogue on this topic of waiver of use? We've had one over every every year. But we've never, the Parks and Rec provided us an opportunity, a plan, but we never followed up with, and I think things fall between the cracks, we all get busy, but when can we have a real dialogue about these fees and the impact? Because I believe every cause that comes is important cause, but at some point in time, when do we have a conversation with us about how we're going to deal with these issues? I'm pretty sure some of my colleagues may share the same sentiments, but...
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Williams, we recently brought before council the audits, and one of the audits was of Parks and Recreation, and one of the management responses to some of the recommendations was that we...
I'm sorry. You say you did what? You brought back... I'm sorry.
The
You
audit,
said- oh.
the audits, the past
How
audits.
recent was that?
Maybe 2 meetings ago? I'd have to check, I'm not sure. But my point is that...
You mean they actually gave us the audit booklet that they gave us for the... I haven't received that. I don't know if my other colleagues... I haven't received
It would have been part of the item, the actual audits, and the people from the audit company were here at the meeting. But to answer your...
Usually they provide us a booklet.
They did, sir.
Okay.
But to answer your question, one of the responses that we gave was to address this exact issue. And we put a timeline in it to work with the city attorney's office to come up with any discrepancies in the code and what actually is allowed and isn't allowed, and to make it much more clear for everyone.
Okay. So my question goes back to the mayor. When will we perhaps have a discussion? Once you all bring that back,
We
when is that
actually put a
anticipated?
timeline in it, and I don't know off the top of my head, but I can check and let you know, and we'll bring it back at that point, because we do need to work with legal to look at the code and look at what is allowed and how things are articulated to make it more clear.
Okay. And for the record, I did not receive a report from that audit. So if you can provide that to me, I'm not sure, but I'd like to read that, please.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Shelley?
Yeah, similar comments, and that is, it's just the same issue. So I know that we had discussions. We said that there was already a code in place, and then the question was where we were now going to implement it. So I'm happy to have a further discussion whenever the council decides. But in the meantime, in my own mind, I've tried to differentiate where my level is so that I treat everybody equally and fairly across the board. So I'll ask you similar questions I do the others, and that is this free and open to the public, or do you have to pay a ticket to go to your event?
We do charge for a ticket. Actually, we ask for a donation. It's more of that than it is a charge, per se.
Right, but you would not allow someone in unless they made the donation or paid for the ticket for whatever event or food or whatever you're holding here.
Well, we do most of the time have to purchase some of the foods and services.
No, I can understand. It's one of those things where in the context of what my fellow council person said, and that is, we have to treat everybody equally and fairly, and if we do so and we let every not-for-profit organization come up and ask for monies, the city goes broke because all our fees get waived and we can't maintain the facilities. So what I've had to do in my own mind is come up with my own checklist. And so part of that is that if it's free and open to the public so that you're putting on an event and everybody can come and enjoy it, whether they choose to or not, it's their own choice, then I'm okay with it. On the other hand, if the organization is actually charging money, that there's a limit to who could come in the door unless they pay a ticket, now it's not really free and open to the public. And so I have an issue with the city essentially helping fundraise for organizations and choosing which organizations we fundraise for. So that's why I just asked the question in general. And so, I have no problems, helping donate on my personal account if other colleagues want to, or however the vote ends up going. But I do have one other question for Parks and Rec. And I noticed that it's $750 for the rental. Did it increase? Did we increase the fees? Because I know I sponsored 2 of them last year and it was only $500.
No, the fees did not increase. Just this one includes the kitchen. The kitchen's a separate fee.
Okay, that's something different than the others. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the request is for us to waive the fees. We don't have a waiver policy. We don't have a reimbursement policy. I know we had this healthy discussion before about right now there is no pot of money that we draw out of unless it comes out of our PR account. So right now this just is money that just doesn't get doesn't get recouped into the city to operate this facility. That's the challenge that we're struggling with, if I'm not correct. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if we, in years past, we set up a special events or some sort of a fund, we put $30,000 or $40,000 into it, people applied for it, and it had criteria, somewhat like you're saying, if it's a free event, if it's open to the public, if it's, and those people were basically judged on that criteria list, and if they met all of those, they would get their allocation of those dollars. If they missed one or two, then they fell outside, and that gave us ability. But that we had to set aside monies that were drawn down from, because this isn't money. This is lost revenue. We're not giving money to this person. We're losing revenue off this facility. Correct? So, I mean, as to everyone's questions, how quickly are we going to be able to, Richard, you've got this in your house, or?
Putting the cards on the table, the council has had a lot of discussions about this. The reason it hasn't gotten resolved is because there's never been an agreement from it doesn't really matter what the code says, because if you come to some agreement that's different with the code, we'll change the code. The reason that this thing has been batting around is because the council really has not come to a consensus on how it wants to deal with these things. And, you know, we can review the code, but Councilman Williams raises, I think, the proper point, which is you need to have a discussion about how you want to deal with these fee waivers and tell us what it is, and then we can implement it. I mean, there's been what you said, which is a pot of money's put aside. We've had a committee at one point. I mean, all sorts of things have happened, but the bottom line is that the council needs to have a consensus on how it wants to deal with this stuff, and the truth is that nobody's really wanted to, it's never been addressed. And so, you know, I can spend hours looking through the code on this, but it's not necessary. What you need to do is have a discussion, tell us how you want to handle it, and we'll implement the details. But the consensus is the thing that's been difficult to get to.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, we're dealing with hypothetical dollars because it's just a loss of revenue. And we got ourselves in a tremendous amount of trouble in years past, because we collected no revenues on any of our facilities to the point where there was no reoccurring dollars to be putting back into those facilities to maintain the level of service that we're accustomed to. Now we've got two on the table tonight. This facility has electricity, water, sewer. It has bills that come in with it. The parking lot issue, the second issue is one that's talking about using the parking lot at the baseball stadium. I don't see $1,000 cost there, but you know, look, we're going to have to make the decision where we're going to waive these fees tonight or not, and then we're going to have this discussion. And I know the manager, you know, George, is very in tune to this, and he has a very strong opinion about this. So we need to corner him, and we need to have this discussion at, you know, a very soon council meeting. So as we make these transitions into this new election cycle, we can come up with some closure to this, and ruffle feathers or not. But, you know, right now we've got to deal with this particular question as to this waiver or not. Kate, and then I'm going to go to Councilman Rowe.
I was just going to say, yes, we can do that. We can come back and we can point out any discrepancies that exist and potential solutions. I can follow up with legal and come back.
Mr. Roth.
Thank you. I just want to add something, and I'm sympathetic with people who are out fundraising and trying to raise money for their organizations. But just as an example setter, I operate a 501c3 charity.
Mm-hmm.
I host business events in the city of Homestead, and I've never once come to the city of Homestead and asked for fees waived on any pavilion that I've ever rented. So I associate fundraising with expense. We have some expense involved if we want to hold our events in beautiful venues such as this, Harris Field, and the pavilion. And I work hard to raise sponsorships to cover those expenses. I just wanted to put that out there. I'm sympathetic with what you guys do and how you raise money. I look at it a different way. That's just part of an expense for me to help other people by raising monies for local charities as we do. And I don't come and ask for waivers of fees. And I'm thankful to some of the colleagues up here who do step up and help us with expenses that we have. And maybe that is what will happen tonight here for you, is we may step up and help defray those costs. But I just wanted to put it out there that, in my opinion, it's part of what your business model should be. You have expenses that you expect. I'm assuming you're paying for the food that's coming in that day, and I'm assuming that there's certain things that you have to pay for in the course of doing business. And I understand exactly your hardships, but and I go through those every day. I just wanted to put that out there for you guys. Thank you.
Mr. Burgess.
Thank you, Mayor. Just as I try to help most groups that come before us, I'll go ahead and donate $100 towards their cause.
You said you were willing to participate, Steve, as well.
Yeah, I'm willing to donate to the cause.
I can donate some. I'm going to run out of money anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I don't think there's going to be a position to waive the fees tonight. But I think that all the council members would be willing to, not all, but some will be willing to, contribute towards lowering your cost of the $750. I don't know if we can get to the full $750, but I think there's a consensus that we can all pool together some money to help defray the cost. But I don't know that we can get to the full $750.
Whatever you can do to help us would be appreciated, because we all do volunteer. We're all volunteer. We do not get paid a penny. Everything effort that we put into it is of our own free time and will.
And that's the problem. That's, I think, what everybody's saying. Every organization that comes to us has a very valid cause and all volunteers. And at the same time, we're still struggling to try to maintain this facility so that it's of this kind of quality for everybody for the next 20 years. But if we never collect any fees to offset the operational cost of this, then we'll see this facility deteriorate. So that's what we're struggling with right now. So let us each of us individually find some way through our staffs to get with the manager's office and help you offset the cost. And I don't know what that number will be. Mr. Williams?
Yes, sir. I was just about to ask that question. Was the total amount? What does it cost to rent?
$750.
But that's for nonprofits. I thought there was a category for not-for-profits. Do you all have two categories? What are your? Is it?
There's 3 categories for this building.
Okay.
There's for members, for the general public, and for nonprofits.
And what would you talk about the prices?
I don't have the prices on me on the top of my head, but it is. I want to say it's 500 for the nonprofits.
Oh, 500, right? That's what I thought. But what are you? Where's the other 250?
The kitchen, I know, added up to the 250. I want to say it's 2 hours, $125 an hour. Off the top of my head, I don't know the exact figure, but that's what adds up to this.
Okay, all right. Just a quick question, Mayor, just a quick second. For your organization, have the city ever waived your fees before?
Yes, I did last year.
Last year, okay. Yeah, that's the when we start to, that's the issue that is difficult, because we've already set a precedent if we do every organization like this and we use the Homestead Sports Complex parking lot, whatever. I don't know what the use fees for that is, but we've already kind of set a precedent until we have that conversation. How many years have we done this for you all?
I've been on this run for 27 years.
Right, no, waiving the fees.
For waiving fees, this is only the second year.
How many, second?
Yes.
So this is your third year or second year?
This will be our third year,
This
yes.
will be the third year. In the first 2 years, we waived your fees.
Yes.
Yeah. Mayor, I mean, I think going forward, what's the problem? And I know it's the council's decision, but if, you know, we do this tonight with what I hear we're trying to project, then what stops another organization saying, well, you did it this way, and, you know, just last week, you did it for whatever organization, I don't want to put an organization out there, but, and why not for this cause? I just, you know, until we have that conversation and say, this is where we're going, to augment the process this way will just be called foul, you know? And so I would just, you know, just waive the fees and, you know, be done with it. And we need to just have that conversation. That's what I proffer, so that we can, you know, because you've already probably anticipated, and, you know, in your plans and when is your event?
I'm sorry?
When is your event?
The event is February 20th.
February 20th. And will you expect, obviously this is going to hurt your bottom line for what your intentions are, am I right?
Well, we never ever schedule a bottom line because we're trying to raise as much funds as we can.
Right. Well, you're saying your goal is 3,000. I'm trying to help you. You're saying your goal is 3,000. The less you take away from what you're trying to do,
yes,
the less you have for what you're trying to accomplish. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes. All right. So, Mayor, I'm kind of profit that we just kind of waive the fees so and next year, with the anticipation of this conversation, hopefully you'll include it within with what Mr. Roth has suggested, so that we're not, you know, have you suspended from, you know, from what you're trying to do, or leave you suspended in there with what you're trying to do.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So your motion is to waive the fees?
Yes, sir. Yes,
is there
sir.
a second on the motion to waive the fees? Second. Is there a second? Any other comments or questions about waiving the fees? All in favor of fee waiver on tab 6?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay? Okay, so that fails. We have had this exercise in the past where we've not allowed fee waiver, and we've augmented the cost through council contribution. I think Mr. Williams is absolutely correct. We've got to have this conversation, and this is going to be a line in the sand that we have to create. And so we've struggled with this now for a while.
Yeah.
Let the council members work through their assistance and contact your office, and we'll do everything we can to lower the cost of the $750 as much as possible, and if we're lucky, maybe even get it all. Yeah. But at this particular point, we're trying to figure out and get our arms around the fee waiver, okay?
Okay. We have a contact. Her name is Kateri Hilton, and she's the one that made the arrangements for us to get on the DS, or onto the...
Okay, Parks and Rec, you have that? Okay, so you'll get in touch with all of our staff members, and we'll figure out what we can do to help offset the cost.
Perfect. I'll forward that to assistants in the morning.
Okay, thank you.
Anything you can do would be appreciated, please.
Mayor, I think, is it counting dollars now? So is it that we are, those who can give $100, is that what we're trying to, hopefully, the money all comes from the same pot, it's general funds. So whether we waive your fees or give you from our allocation, it's basically the same thing. We just can't give it to somebody else. So
okay.
It's all coming from the
That's
same
acceptable.
pot. So I don't mind giving I'll match whatever my colleagues do so that I'm consistent with what they are doing.
I mean, assuming every council person can give $100 out of their allotment, that's $700.
Mm-hmm.
So you're very close.
Yes.
And it doesn't accomplish your goal completely, but it keeps us where we need to be as we struggle through this, okay?
So I guess I have to make the arrangement through Parks and Recreation then?
Parks and Rec.
All right. I have a date already approved, well, set aside by the lady that was taking care of the date schedules for the use of the facility. And she said it was open, so as far as I know, it's still there.
Nothing changes as far as that concerned. Continue to deal with Parks and Rec. We're just going to find a way to try to help you offset the costs through the council, okay?
That's good.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, tab 7.
Tab 7 is a waiver of usage fee.
Okay, let me ask a question before we get started. The parking lot, tell me what a $1,000 fee for the use of the parking lot or green space, because if I remember correctly, the way that they used to do this, they would walk around in a circle in the grassy area.
And Mayor, I asked the question. I don't know if the right person is here to answer that question completely, so I would have to get back to you on exactly how this fee was determined, and perhaps
And this is not until April, right?
it is
April 23rd.
correct. Yes.
Okay, so
we can defer this and come back.
we don't need to address this right now. I think if we can get some information about, what it is that they're supposedly paying for at $1,000, and so you have some justification for a $1,000 fee for use of a green space parking lot.
If I may,
Yes, ma'am.
hi, good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name's Jillian Alondri. I live at 2100 Southwest 152nd Avenue here in Homestead. I work for the American Cancer Society. I'm the community manager that's working with Relay for Life. When I was a kid, we had it at the Homestead Sports Complex. The last few years, it's been held at the Homestead Hospital. They're still allowing us to have our meetings there, but we aren't going to be using their parking lot. So we're just asking to, I'm not sure what the fees are, but we're asking to waive the fees or allow us to use the parking lot. We'll be covering the cost of the porta potties, the security, we'll have police there. So we're covering all that. We're basically just asking for use of the facility because we were told that we needed to get the fees waived to use the parking lot itself. I'm not sure, I wasn't given any details on the price.
No, what we're trying to figure out is, Parks and Rec is saying it's a $1,000 fee to use the green space, the parking lot at the sports complex. Nobody's really sure what that.
And we'll make sure Parks and Rec follows up with so that we know exactly.
Let me get the
Vice Mayor.
American
Cancer Society to know exactly what they're using and what
Vice
the cost
Mayor,
for the
go ahead.
parking lot is.
She has the floor.
Thank you. I have a question. We may defer this so that you can get more information because we're unclear on what the $1,000 will be used for. I also would like to know what is the impact of the American Cancer Society as it relates to us locally? In the packet, it said that you have advocacy and you have a local footprint where you support the city locally, because we raise a lot of money in the city. The city of Homestead actually has a team. There are several nonprofits in the community that have teams. We're waiving fees, but not to say that it doesn't happen. I just don't see the impact of all this money raised benefiting those that have been impacted by cancer locally. We have a growing amount of our constituents, our residents that are impacted by cancer, but I don't see how they are benefiting from all the money raised in the city of Homestead. You may not have the answer now, but when it's come back before us, I encourage you to bring that data to provide to us to convince us that all the money that we're raising are benefiting our residents and not being raised and sent out and helping with administrative fees and people across the nation. It needs to help us locally. So I'm not convinced that that has been happening. So if you can bring back that information, it'd be very helpful for me to potentially support this.
Okay.
Mr. Shelley?
I mean, if the consensus is to defer it, then there's I don't need to weigh in on anything, so I'll just wait for it to come back.
All right, Mr. Williams?
Yes, here's my issue is that the last group that just came, it was for cancer, right? This group is for cancer. The last, so can they get together at some point and just do a huge event for the cause? And I understand that there are different aspects of the disease, but at the end of the day, waiving these fees or looking to bring back to me it's about our consistency in the process. What will make this organization have to come back to be thought that we're going to waive fees than the last organization that's doing, their end result is to, help with whatever the objective is as it relates to cancer. So them bringing it back, are we going to do what we just did and try to help them defray it, or we're asking Parks and Recs to determine how do they come up with $1,000 for the parking lot? Is that a fee? Is that what? Is that is that within your fee schedule?
Well, for sure, we're going to follow up with respect to the fee, to understand that, and to follow up with the agency. But with regard to your other question, that's...
Right, but that's what I'm saying. So we're going to ask them to come back, and are we going to, let them move on if we already have, kind of determined if
No, I
what we're
understand
going
your
to
point,
do,
but I think
then
that
to hold up their project or to
whatever the
provide
council
some
wishes
data
on that.
for us, then we need to do the same thing. Because for the last organization, and for me, it's all about how can the Homestead resident of the local area as Vice Mayor said, benefit locally, and then what are some, as she said, data to say we have helped 1,000 people in Homestead because of this event, because just what we just did in tab 6, obviously it's the president we're trying to transition to, and I'm calling foul. How do we determine that American Cancer Society is more worthy than the Knights, whatever the organization, Knights of Columbus, Florida State Council? So I just raised that question, that's all.
Mr. Shelley? Yeah, I'll go ahead and weigh in then. Yeah, I agree with Councilman Williams and saying that, I think it's got to be fair. So for me, I would approve this, assuming if it's like it's been run in the past, and that is that you may raise funds, it is a fundraiser, but the event itself is open to the public. You can come in, you can walk, you can remember loved ones who've been hurt by cancer. You can donate to the cause if you choose to, but at the same time, it's fun. You have stuff there for everybody to do. It's a community event. So I'm okay with the concept. I'm okay with waiving the fee here because by putting the event on, the public as a body, the city of Homestead, any resident could go and could benefit and could have a good time. Whether they like the cause or not is a different story, but they have the opportunity to do so. The one prior I have an issue with because it's a closed-in environment. You have to actually pay money out of your pocket to show up and to attend the event. And so now they're putting on an event for a closed group of people who can afford to go to the event. Both may be worthy causes, but that's in my mind, I've had to draw the line. Now, it doesn't mean everyone thinks the same way I think, but I've had to pick some way in which I could make it fair so that you're right, that we don't treat one different than another. And so in my mind, that's why I could support this one, but not the other one. Nothing to do with the cause, strictly because it's open to the public and anybody that's interested in the cause can show up and have a good time.
All right.
Vice Mayor.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify. My concern was, in reading the packet, it said that you support on a local level. So in order to convince me to not just waive the fees, but support it personally, my mother has cancer that's metastasized. My concern is I don't see the support locally. So in order for me to support it either way, I would like to see that local support. And that's why I was asking for more information to convince me to feel comfortable supporting it.
Absolutely. So Relay for Life is a community-based event. The community gets behind it. We're trying to build it back up to what it was when I was a kid, because for anybody that wasn't a part of Relay for Life or doesn't know what Relay for Life is, when I was a kid, pretty much you had rodeo weekend and you had Relay for Life weekend, and that was it. It was a great event for a great cause. Now, I didn't realize at the time all the amazing programs and services that the American Cancer Society has to offer. My mother is a breast cancer survivor. She was diagnosed when I was 16. And until I started working for the American Cancer Society, I didn't know about these programs. So I'll tell you about a few of them. One is the Road to Recovery. We provide rides to and from, transportation to and from treatments for anybody going through cancer. Last year, we were able to provide over 4,500 rides to and from treatments for men and women going through cancer in the South Florida area. I don't have the statistics specifically for Homestead, but the money does stay locally in South Florida. That's just one of the things, because I come from a big family. We were very fortunate that we were able to take my mother to her treatments, or she was able to drive herself. But there are so many families down here that, maybe only have one car per family, or don't have a car at all, and they have to ride the bus, and they need to figure out how to get to their treatments. And that's just one of the things that the American Cancer Society provides, because when you're going through that, transportation should be the last concern on your mind. Another thing is we have Hope Lodges, because we do have great facilities here in Homestead, in Miami, that patients can go to. But for anybody that has to go out of state, we have the Hope Lodge, where they can stay free of charge, them with a caregiver, the patient and the caregiver. Last year we sent 7 families to a Hope Lodge.
Hold on one second. We're not, I don't think that's what your debate was. Locally, go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Well, you have the information. Just provide it to us, communicate that to us, so that we can share it with those that have been impacted by breast cancer or any other cancer. Right. That's what I'm asking for. So you don't have to give a whole presentation tonight, but if you can provide that information to us so that we can share that information with our residents, I think that would be suffice for me.
Okay.
Mayor, if I may suggest.
And let me just say this. My question was, what is someone paying $1,000 for to rent grass in open space?
Understood.
In the parking lot at the sports complex?
And my comment was suggestion based on Councilman Shelley's suggestion, was that we do defer this. We bring it back with the information that's been requested, in addition to the fee, what Councilman Faircloth has asked for.
Is there a motion to defer? This is an April 23rd event. So how quickly can you get the information? By next Cal?
Yes.
Motion to defer to the next Cal?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor, can I step out? Tab 8, I think.
Turn the mic off. Okay, tab 8, motion to place car 1666 on the council agenda, Children's Trust Service Partnership Grant.
Move it.
Staff report.
Vice Mayor, Children's Trust Grant is to provide support services to families that have been exposed to violence, such as domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse, child neglect, and ungovernable activities. 2016 is the third year of a 3-year grant cycle in which the City of Homestead has been approved for a grant award of $400,000. Staff recommends that the Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the City Manager to enter into a contract with the Children's Trust for services, including establishing a budget for the grant funds that will be provided through Start Off Smart, SOS.
Questions or comments from council? Councilman Williams.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. The same question that I ask all the time, as far as the performance of this grant that we're asking to proceed with, this is going for detectives or patrol officers. What is it? I think I thought I read about detectives or for overtime, right? This is right, but this is for the other nonprofits within the consortium of.
If you could answer the question. Sandy can answer the question.
Okay. It's still a grant, right? And you all are going to be the fiscal agent for it? Or?
Yes, we are.
So my questions are still relevant to, I know it's available. I'm still asking the same question that I ask all the time, is how would this, what are your findings from what you've done from last year to this year?
Well, the grant requires that we serve 800 families. It is a partnership grant that involves 3 agencies that are funded through the Children's Trust, one being SOS, one being Mujer, and the other one being En Familia. We also have 2 partners that are not paid through the grant, but work on the grant with us. That's Legal Aid and Vita Law Services. Basically, we are charged with serving 800 families who have been exposed to violence, whether that violence be domestic violence, child abuse, child neglect, sexual assault, whatever it may be. We provide services, support services to those families. And it's done in conjunction with the police department, with the officers who respond to those cases. Officers are not funded through this particular grant. This particular grant, all of the funds go to the nonprofits.
So it goes actually directly to the
Nonprofits.
agencies, the nonprofits. Okay. And again, my question is, based on last year, I know I understand that you say that you're charged with serving 800 families, but in a report that I always ask for is if you could provide that for me so I can to see exactly. Would you be able to do that?
Absolutely. The last report that we provided was an annual summary, and that was provided in December of 2014. I'm not quite sure if you want an annual report or if you would like a monthly report or a quarterly report. Whichever it is, we can absolutely provide that information to council.
Yes, that will be fine. At this time, in your report, the last report that I received, about 2 or 3 pages of written, and the rest with your graphs and pie charts of such. What I'm interested in knowing is, in your partnerships, how what are your standards or performing standards or evaluation in considering those particular entities that are part of your consortium?
Well, the partners were chosen in the initial grant, which goes back 6 to 8 years ago, and that's because we had worked together on the same cases that this grant funded. Mujer has been in the community for almost 20 years, so has Infamilia, and so has SOS. And so we already were working those cases as a partnership. So that's how the funding came about. We applied as a partnership to the trust. Now, we do monitor the partners. We do ensure that all of the trust requirements are met. The trust also monitors us to ensure that we are meeting the goals and the scope of services that they are funding us for.
Right. Madam Vice Mayor, may I ask another question?
Sure, you still have the floor.
Thank you. Well, maybe let me redirect my question. There are other social service organizations that come within our perimeter of the city that perhaps can also provide. Is it just based on your application of the grant that these organizations are already within your agreement? Is it a specific time period, or do you evaluate these relationships every year? Do you evaluate every 2 years? If somebody had an organization that can also provide services such as the relationship that you have, how would they be able to perhaps facilitate that need for their organization in order to expand beyond your consortium you've had for 6 to 7 years, you said?
Well, the Children's Trust, their grant is a competitive grant, and anyone can apply for it.
But you apply for it, and then it comes to your organization through the city, and then you have a separate consortium in which you have it. So you mean Infamy applies for this grant within your grant?
Yes,
But
sir.
how do they know that when it's open? How do other organizations know that you're with this consortium unless it's advertised?
The Children's Trust, they do advertise it. We have applied on 3 consecutive on competitive proposals over the last 6 to 8 years. We have applied as CHI has applied. There's other agencies that have applied. And as I said, it's competitive.
Do you understand my question or no?
Well, the reason that we chose the agencies, and SOS did not choose them, we have worked with them in a partnership for a number of years. So when the grant was announced, it was only a natural that our partnership would compete You know, when it comes to working sexual assault cases, the police department, SOS, and Mohair work together on those because Mohair is the only sexual assault center in South Dade. So it's a natural marriage, and it has been that way. We have never had another agency.
You never had a divorce?
Excuse me?
You never had a divorce?
No, we haven't divorced yet. But we've never had an agency come to us and say, can we be part of the partnership? In fact, it's quite the opposite.
I got you.
We're trying to recruit more agencies to join the partnership.
That's what I'm trying to, see
Okay.
how is that done?
Well, we just recently met with Christie House, for example.
Right.
And it's very difficult. We have struggled. I can tell you, I've worked in this community for 25 years. And you know, sir, that it's a struggle to get agencies to work in Deep South Dade. I can't tell you why, but it is. And most of the agencies that are providing these services have been here for a very, very long time.
Right, right. And I guess that's why at some point the Children's Trust, want to withdraw funding at times because we just, I don't know what it is. I don't know. I have no idea. But I wish more organizations would serve within this context. I know you all do a great job in trying to, facilitate, but that was my whole aim, was trying to see how much dialogue, if there's any new developments of people trying to, join your consortium of services to try and add. So that's what I was trying to get on the record. And then the report that I'm asking for, it can be just a yearly thing. You don't have to do it every month, but at the end of the grant cycle per se for the year, then just provide for the council, whoever wants it to be able to have. I like to read it so I know when things happen that we have these services available. And hopefully at some point in time, I know one time the city had a guide, like a guide of all the social services that we have within Homestead. I have not seen, that update. I think We Care at one point
has one.
provided that. I don't know how, but if have they updated it?
Yes.
Yeah. And do we at the city have, those that we can give? Because I get a lot of calls in my office of somebody need help to pay this, to do that, and if we can, sway them in the right direction, that would be helpful. So
I will make sure that you
Okay.
have, that all the council members and the vice mayor have the We Care booklet.
okay, thank you, thank you.
That's all. Any additional questions or comments from council? Nope. I'll entertain a motion to place Car 1666 on the council agenda.
I move it, Vice Mayor.
Properly moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? And the motion carry. Next item.
Tab 9, please.
Tab 9, Mayor, is Florida Department of Law Enforcement, FDLE 2006 burn grant. FDLE allocates and administers burn grant funds from the Department of Justice to municipalities throughout the state of Florida. The grant allotment per municipality is determined by the municipality's Uniform Crime Report, which provides FDLE with the major crime statistics for the municipality. This year's allotment for the City of Homestead is for $7,170. There is no match to this grant award. Staff recommends that Mayor and Council authorize the City Manager to approve the FDLE 2016 burn grant contract in order to fund overtime costs for police department's investigation into domestic violence cases.
Questions from council? Is there a motion? Move it. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Any final comments?
Yes, same asking to Ms. Sandy to provide a report.
Okay, Sandy. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Tab 10.
Tab 10 is for the purchase of 5 replacement utility trucks. Staff recommends that the mayor and city council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to purchase 5 2016 Ford F-150 four-wheel drive trucks to be used by the electric utility. The total purchase price of the 5 trucks is $144,659. Capital improvement project numbers 619, 638, and 639. This purchase would be through a piggyback agreement from the Florida Sheriff's Contract Bid Award and would replace trucks that are no longer safe or reliable to operate.
Questions from council? Is there a motion? Move it. Moved and seconded. Final comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Hey, wait a minute. We're finished. No more tabs.
Yes.
No, sir.
Ma-
That was the
Mayor?
last one.
Mayor,
Mr. Williams?
yeah, may I just remind everybody, Friday is the Martin Luther King breakfast, and the doors open at 8, and we will start at 8:30. Our program has been condensed, and so I just invite, we've had over, I think, 200 RSVPs so far, if not more. So we're looking forward to all of my colleagues attending. And then Saturday, of course, is the parade. The lineup is at 11, and the parade starts right at 12 noon. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anything else from anybody? Mr. Roth?
Real excited about the Seminole Theater, where there's a show coming up on Friday afternoon. Just curious about how the progress with the construction. Is it totally finished? Has MCM gotten their final CO on the building?
I'll let Rick answer that.
We estimate that the CO's for Thursday.
For Thursday?
Yes, sir.
Is there anything that needs to be done in the building besides going through like punch lists and all that stuff?
Well, they just have some punch lists. Once they get all their final inspections, they'll have the CO. They will be doing some ongoing punch list items, but it's mostly painting.
Okay. What about, is there studios upstairs that aren't finished yet?
No, those are not finished yet. There's going to be, we're looking to see if we can do some drywall there, but that's outside, that's something separate than the actual contract for the CO.
And that's something that we handle ourselves?
We're looking into it.
Yeah, any time frame on that?
I can get back to you on that.
Thank you.
Anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn? Move second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Trash.